Konnichiwa, o genki desu ka? Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all doing well, hope you're having an amazing day. So I'm sure you've all had that thought in the back of your mind about learning a new language. And of course, one of the most popular platforms to learn a language is Duolingo. So I've been doing Duolingo for literally over 1,000 days straight, and I wanted to share my findings with you. Is Duolingo actually a viable way to learn a new language? Is it more than just a meme? Does that owl really sneak up on you all the time telling you to practice? Yeah, hold on. Yeah, just give me a second. Okay, hold on, let me just... So anyway, like I was saying, I'm here to explain to you why that is, and all of the good, bad, and ugly of learning a language with Duolingo. So let's get started. So I've been learning Japanese on Duolingo for almost 3 years now, so I'll be going from that perspective, specifically learning Japanese from English. So, I'm sure there are other subtleties depending on the language you're learning, and it'll probably be easier if you're learning a more similar language to your native language. So just keep that in mind, depending on what language you're trying to learn, that each language has its own intricacies and subtle changes that will make your experience different, depending on which language you're trying to learn. So first, let's just dive into a quick overview of how Duolingo actually works. So Duolingo is broken out into larger overarching sections that have different smaller topics as main sort of lesson plans. And as you advance through the course, these topics get more and more sophisticated and difficult, and there are more nuances to the language. So there are typically 3 different types of exercises you could expect on Duolingo and variations of them. The first one being basic vocab matching. Match vocab to the equivalent word, or sometimes match the audio of the word being spoken to the English translation of it. And then there are the longer, more thorough sentence-based lessons, where you'll get a sentence either in English or in Japanese, and then you have to translate that sentence back to the other language. In the earlier stages of each lesson, you'll be given little tiles that you can plug in and just sort of lay them out in order to finish the sentence. Optionally, you can also use your keyboard, whether you're on desktop or mobile. And this is one of the things that is really handy about mobile, is you can install the keyboard for different languages so that you can actually type in those languages to do the exercises and get a better feel for what it's like to actually write in the language you're trying to learn. And the other type is more of these listening exercises, where you'll be given an audio clip of a word or a sentence, and then you either have to match that word with the written equivalent or write down the words that match the sentence that you heard. There are no speaking exercises, which I think is one of the downsides of this app. And so that's sort of the basic overview of how Duolingo works. Now let's move on to the good things about Duolingo. I think the absolute best thing about Duolingo is the way that it actually constantly reminds you to keep up your habits and your streak, and to keep your streak alive. It's a good motivational tool to keep you dedicated to your practice, because ultimately the best way to keep up with learning a language is to keep using it every single day, even if it's just for a little bit at a time, so that all of the new information you've learned doesn't just sort of waste away without being used. And so this is, in my opinion, absolutely the best thing about Duolingo, is the way that it encourages you to keep your streak going, and just that the lessons are small and bite-sized and easy to pull up, whether you're just waiting for someone, or you're just hanging out on the couch, or you just have a little 5-minute break at work, or whatever it is. Duolingo is great for having these small bite-sized lessons that you can easily engage with and interact with every single day to keep you up to date on your language learning capability. I found that it's also a good way to brush up on very specific vocabulary or topics that you're interested in or need help brushing up on, so you can go drill into lessons that you needed extra help with or more review with. And as a starter, when you're trying to get into a language, the lessons I've found in the beginning are quite simple to get into, and somewhat regularly they come out with new updates that help beginners branch out into the language in different ways, like drilling down into the alphabet, giving you planned out stories to kind of read along and insert vocab into. That kind of stuff is very helpful, and Duolingo is great for that. And then so now we sort of naturally lead into the problems with Duolingo. So let's start with the bad things. The first thing is that there is a heart or life system on Duolingo. So anytime that you get something wrong, you lose one of your 5 hearts. This is problematic because you could be doing a lesson and you don't quite grasp the material yet, and so you'll get it wrong, and then you lose a heart. So it's actually quite easy, especially in later lessons, to completely lose all of your hearts in a single lesson, in which case you have to spend these in-app gems to resume your lesson and refill your hearts. But the problem is that right now, to refill your hearts costs around 400 to 500 gems, which takes a very long time to accrue gems if you're not just outright buying them with cash. But here's a pro tip about that. If you click on your hearts from the main menu, you can train, which will show you exercises you got wrong or topics you've been learning recently, and these do not detract from your hearts if you get anything wrong, and completing one of these lessons will restore 1 heart for free. So if you're ever feeling stuck or you run out of hearts, just do some training exercises and you can bring back those lives for free without having to spend money or upgrade to Plus. The other main downside of Duolingo is the way that it actually teaches you grammar and vocabulary. There are no real structured lesson plans. Every single topic has, overarching things that it talks about, like food, restaurants, travel, etc. There are many topics and everything is grouped under that same umbrella. But the problem is that when you start learning grammar, they just sort of throw sentences at you. And yes, you can click the words in the sentence to see what they mean in either language, but the problem is that there is no actual structured lesson that teaches you, this is how you say this. This is what this grammar means. This is why you would say this, and so on and so on. And so for a long time, the best thing to do would be to visit the comment section of any kind of new grammar that you interact with or experience, because oftentimes the comment section is extremely helpful and people will post links to other things. They will just outright explain what things mean and give definitions and explanations of grammar and vocabulary, and the comments can be extremely helpful. But then here's the downside of the comment section. It seems like recently Duolingo has been moving away from comments. They used to have a completely dedicated forum section where you could post about topics and questions that you had, and people could freely go on there and answer your questions and discuss, but they have essentially removed that entire section of their website. And if you try to visit them now, all you get is the page that says, oh, this is no longer available. And then when you go and look at the comments through the app, you can still see the comments, but they're all closed, meaning there is no more discussion allowed. You can't post any new comments if you had any extra questions. So I wouldn't be surprised if the comment section starts to just go away entirely, which is kind of a huge issue because the comments are one of the best ways to actually really understand what you're being taught by the system. And so moving on to the ugly, it's monetization, really. The constant ads and the heart system and Duolingo always asking you to upgrade and pay money. This is sort of the worst thing about Duolingo, is the heart and gem monetization system. For instance, your reward for completing your daily number of lessons or whatever is around 30 gems. So it would take you like 15 days to get enough gems to refill your hearts once. And so this is one of the major problems with the platform. It punishes you for getting something wrong and then encourages you to spend real life money so that you can avoid that problem. And I totally get it, devs gotta eat, they gotta make money to support all the people that use it for free. But it really hinders the experience of learning on Duolingo. Over the years, before they had the heart system and gems were easier to earn and all that, I was able to build quite a large stockpile of gems, so I don't really worry too much about that on my daily lessons. But if you're somebody just starting out, you'll probably find that you'll run out of hearts pretty quickly, and you just don't have the gems to refill your hearts. So that really, is forcing their monetization model onto you. So Duolingo strongly encourages you to upgrade to their Plus subscription, which is around $7 a month. And I have very mixed feelings about that. I've had different Duolingo Plus trials over the few years that I've tried it. And while I have Plus, I find it useful, but while I don't have Plus, it doesn't really make me want to subscribe to Plus. I don't really feel that it's worth the money. And the other downside of this monetization scheme is that if you don't have Duolingo Plus, every single lesson that you complete will be followed with an ad. These ads can be skipped after 5 seconds. Some of them are a little bit suspect in the content, but I've never seen anything like just outright inappropriate or like adult oriented, so that's good. And generally just waiting 5 seconds to click the X isn't a huge deal when the lessons may take you 5 to 10 minutes and they're pretty decent overall. It's a robust app for being free, and yeah, sure, upgrading to Plus adds to the experience, but I personally don't feel like it's worth the money because of all the other alternatives out there for learning a language that just kind of do a lot of things better. And so this leads me into the sort of final topic of this video, which is other resources for learning a language. And so some of these will be Japanese specific, so I'll start with the more general ones. A great alternative to Duolingo is an app called Memrise. It's a very similar kind of thing where there are structured lessons and it uses spaced repetition to automatically give you new content and refresh old content. And the benefits of Memrise is that it's free, just like Duolingo. There is no heart system, so you can get as much stuff wrong as you want and still continue. And there is actually a greater variety of lessons offered. There are still ads, but they don't come up after every single lesson. It's more like every 2 or 3 lessons you'll see an ad, which isn't so bad. And then one of the main benefits is the other things you get. They do a much better job of explaining what things actually mean. They have video and audio clips from actual native speakers, so you can get a better feel and sense for what the language actually sounds like spoken by native speakers and more casual dialogue that you may use in real life. And they also have voice recording lessons so that you can practice speaking the language and get feedback on if you're speaking it correctly, which Duolingo does not have at all. Another great resource is Anki. Anki is like flashcards that are made by just real people out there that put them up online free for you to download, and there are thousands, tens of thousands of decks available. The ones that I use for Japanese are here. I'll list them in the description below. And Anki is great because it's totally free. The lessons can be quite high quality if you download the right ones, and it uses, again, spaced repetition, and you actually tell the app how well you understand the flashcard that's being shown to you. It'll use its built-in algorithm to show you the things that you need to see as often as you dictate by how well you told the app you understand it. It's not as interactive because it's essentially just flashcards, but a lot of the flashcards are really high quality and done really well and are really good alternative resources to the other more interactive apps. I would say for drilling down vocabulary and specific instances of grammar, Anki is one of the best resources that I've found. And then for specific Japanese learning resources, a good one is jisho.org, which is a free Japanese-English dictionary. You can type in English, you can type in kana, you can type in kanji, or you can paste in large chunks of kanji or sentences, and it will break it down and show you what each individual thing means. You can even drill into specific kanji. It's definitely not a catch-all, but it's a very good resource to help you with those little things, or if you're just reading or watching or you hear something and you want to look it up, a really good resource for that. And then the other main app that I use daily is this one called Ringotan. And right now this app is completely free, which I totally recommend downloading because the devs have said that it will be free for a time. And then if you download it while it's free, you get to keep it for free forever. But eventually it will become a paid app to download. And this is a great app because it's all about learning kanji. It has essentially every single kanji in the Japanese language, and it gives you the stroke order of how to write the kanji. So stroke by stroke, you can learn how to write kanji, and it also uses spaced repetition and then gives you a running tally of how many things you've learned and how properly you've learned them to this point. It even gives you common Japanese words that use that kanji so you can associate the sound and the kanji and the definition of it itself. This is a really great way to learn kanji because as you learn the stroke order and the meaning of each individual kanji, it really helps you better intuitively understand what each character means, especially in the greater context of sentences and stories and books and manga and things like that. A couple other things I'd mention. There's a site called Puni Puni Japanese, which has really quick, simple bites of Japanese lessons for grammar. Good place to check out. They have simple explanations and they use these cute little characters. And then a YouTube channel I recommend is Japanese Ammo with Misa. She's a native Japanese speaker, but her English is really good, and she explains a lot of Japanese concepts and culture and all that kind of stuff, and has a lot of different lessons about various different things, from simple grammar to colloquial speaking and common phrases and modern phrases and slang and swearing and just all kinds of stuff that's really useful to know, especially taught by a native Japanese speaker. And so yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to go over. So yeah, a lot of information, but sort of wrapping things up as a conclusion. After 1,000 days of Duolingo, can you actually use Duolingo to learn a language? I think it's not so cut and dry simple as yes or no. I do think that Duolingo is and can be an incredibly valuable tool for learning a language, and is a great way to keep engaged and keep up with your regimen of just little bite-sized lessons that you can dig into every single day and keep your streak alive so that you don't just sort of let it atrophy and you forget all the stuff that you've learned over the past month or two. But as a standalone platform for learning a language, I think even with Plus, it's just not feasible. It just doesn't seem reasonable to me to only use Duolingo as the sole resource for learning a new language. It's just not robust enough. They don't include enough with the lessons. There's not enough structure. It's not guided well enough to really acquaint you with the necessary tools you need to properly listen to, understand, intuitively speak a language the way that you would need to get around in a completely foreign country. So if you're trying to learn a language and you just want to take the first steps, absolutely, download Duolingo. What it offers for free is great. It's very useful and will get you started on that habit. It'll introduce you to the language, it'll introduce you to basic vocabulary and the alphabet and so on, and it's awesome for that. I really love Duolingo for that, and that's why I've kept up my streak for this long. But if I didn't have this big of a streak with this many in-app currency, I totally admit it would be harder to start up. So ultimately, can you learn a language with Duolingo alone? No. As a supplement to an overarching greater motivation to learn a language, absolutely, it's a great tool for that. Use it in conjunction with Memrise, with Anki, with YouTube, with books, with shows and movies. And so the real answer, I would say, if you want to learn a language, it's a time commitment and it's a greater overall mental concentration commitment to want to better yourself and expand your repertoire of skills and abilities and your ability to communicate and understand other people in the world, no matter what language it is you're trying to learn. And I totally think that learning a language is an amazing way to spend your time and resources. Sure, it's not easy and sometimes you'll want to give up, but then maybe you'll be watching that show that you've watched before in a different language that suddenly now you can understand what they're saying. Or maybe, like for me, I'll watch stuff about Japan and I'll be like, whoa, I know what that says. I know what they're saying. I know what they're talking about. And that's when it really starts to click and really makes you feel like, wow, I'm really getting somewhere. And it really makes everything sort of feel more worthwhile. So yeah, ultimately, I think that learning a language is one of the best things that you could do with your time and energy, and I totally recommend it. And Duolingo is a great way to get started, but just know that it can't be your be-all, end-all for language learning. And so yeah, hopefully that answers any questions that you may have had about Duolingo. I feel like as an extremely experienced user, this is the best overview that I could give of the platform. But of course, if you have any other questions about Duolingo or learning a language or learning Japanese specifically, leave a comment down below. Let me know and I will respond to you and let you know to the best of my ability anything that I could tell you to help you on your journey. So yeah, otsukare-sama deshita. I appreciate you. But as always, thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, consider subscribing for more stuff like this, or just to hear more of my other thoughts on various other things. I make a lot of different things on this channel, but they're all, my thoughts, Tim thoughts. So if you like me, if you like this kind of stuff, consider subscribing, consider sticking around and checking out some of my other stuff. Take care, and I'll see you guys in the next one.